Yep.
Hello, Internet, and welcome back to Antiheroes Anonymous, or welcome for the first time if it's your first time joining us. I'm Ethan, and I'm the Dungeon Master for this 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons show! You guys seem to be very excited about this.
I did it too early last time. I had to be careful.
Oh, I see.
I was really excited last time. So I was like, I can't do it, they'll make fun of me.
So yes, that's me,
Yeah.
and the players will now introduce themselves to you, and then we'll go into some announcements, and then get right into playing.
Hi, I'm Nick. I play Thaddeus, the Human Vengeance Paladin.
I'm Kay. I play Harmony, who's a tiefling wild magic sorcerer.
I'm Melissa, and I play Mara, and she is a human rogue pirate.
I'm Zach, and I play Hunter, who's a Warforged Fighter Ranger.
Okay, so those announcements. We stream on Twitch every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific time, and then post those episodes to YouTube the following Wednesday. Throughout the show, we use a variety of custom items, as well as a custom wild magic table. So be aware of that as you watch. Our music comes from BattleBards, TabletopAudio, and Incompetech. And our character portraits on the info cards, which you can see in the top right corner, come from an artist named Carrie Peach, who is at Carrie Draws on Twitter. And then if you're watching us on Twitch, you can check the channel page for links and info to everything I just mentioned and more. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can check the video description. Then, if you want even more information about us and what we're doing, you can follow us on Twitter at AntiheroesAnon. And other than that, we just hope you enjoy the show, share it with your friends, and come back for more. So, a little bit of recap, and then we'll dive straight in. The party, is this still the current? Yes, it is. Okay. It started with Ravenmore, so I was like, is this still the current recap? The party went with their friends Dawn and Eli to Ravenmore to save Mandus, another friend, from a vampire named Alkeen. While they were there, they also protected some refugees, found a lost memory from the Raven Queen, and fought against the Medusa Queen Ixlati. Then they made their way back to the Drowning Kiss, their boat, which they inherited from its previous captain, Constance Holt, with their friend Kamiko, who they had met on Kamikami Island on their first visit there. They then slid down the slime-covered slopes of the volcano, being chased by a Goristro all the way, and then made it out to sea, where they experienced a 2-week-long trip to following Mara's compass towards what will supposedly be a pathway into the Elderhaven Reaches, pursuing their own projects whenever they had time to spare along the way. As they got to where the compass was pointing them, the compass being a bow and arrow that fires light arrows that point off in a specific direction, one of those light arrows shot down deep into the water, and then after what felt like maybe 5-10 minutes or so, just a long amount of time while you were sort of debating what you needed to be doing, some miles out from the boat ahead of you, a little black landmass began to become visible, rising up out of the water, and then that grew slowly, forming upward into this large black domed rock with crevices and things like that in it. And then eventually, when it reached a point miles high, towering above the Drowning Kiss, an archway began to appear in it, large enough for a boat to sail into. And that was where we left off. So I will just turn on some music, and then we can get started.
I'm so nervous.
Let's just go back.
Let's clean up any will.
What would you guys like to do?
Man, that was a lucky arrow shot. See what I got with that arrow?
Only took a couple tries.
Trophy.
Yeah, is that a trophy? Are you dead yet? Giant structure?
I mean, everything about this cave says swim in, and everything about my instinct says run away.
Swim out.
So how far would it be to go around to check out like the other side?
This thing is a miles-high dome, so it would presumably spread out several miles on, and like you almost like lose track of it as you look to the sides. But you could theoretically swim around it if you wanted to. Or not swim,
Or
sail around it. Yeah.
I don't think it'd be a good idea to go off course when our compass is saying go this way. I mean, you know what happened to your grandfather.
On that note, though, it's important to note that the black fog that you know shrouds the Elderhaven Reaches is not in sight.
Oh. Hmm.
The compass largely led you northeast instead of directly east, which is where the Elderhaven Reaches are.
Well, we didn't go through all that shit on Kame Island to ignore the mystical artifact that we risked our lives for.
I agree.
Alright, so slow and steady is what we're gonna do.
Keep watch.
And I will have fireballs in both hands ready to go
Okay.
at any sign of danger.
Alright, here we go.
Thaddeus goes to put his armor on.
Okay.
10 minutes later.
Kamiko sort of approaches Hunter at the bow of the ship as you begin to like row the ship steadily forward towards this aperture, and she says, I don't know what to expect, but this is ominous.
It is, isn't it? We're all a little on edge right now, going in here. So,
Uh-oh.
If it's the way forward, I think we have to trust it.
yeah, that's our feelings too.
And then she sort of falls into silence, standing next to you.
Yeah.
And slowly but surely you row the drowning kiss forward into the archway there. And it becomes very quickly dark. Like you have a few moments of light from the outside world before all that light is well behind you, and you can just see it fading into the distance. And you are surrounded by complete darkness.
Dark vision.
No dark vision.
Sword.
Yeah. So the sword kind of illuminates the walls to the left and right of you. And the walls are actually very, very close to the sides of the Drowning Kiss, maybe 15 feet on each side. So your oars can just barely make it down into the water and propel you forward. It's almost to the point where you have to like press the oars against the walls to pull
Oh,
forward.
wow.
And as you get a little ways into the cave, you begin to notice that the rough walls smooth out, and by the light of Thaddeus' sword, you wouldn't have seen it with just dark vision, because there's that lack of color, right? But by the light of Thaddeus' sword, you spot carvings on the wall, and a lot of them are faded and worn from weathering by the water, presumably. But you can make out sort of rough images of figures. It starts out with there's just one figure, and then in the next image there's several figures standing near that figure, but sort of at a lower height. And each of those figures has some kind of symbol next to them, but they're faded, and you can make out maybe like one of them is this two-faced mask, but other than that, the rest are kind of hard to make out. They're just faded and worn too much. And then the original figure disappears, and a lot more figures begin to group around the ones that stood next to the original one. Smaller, but there's no real context to these pictures to reveal any size of these creatures. All you can tell is that they're humanoid. And then the pictures go on, and you can see these figures seem to be building structures, and like you start to actually get landscapes and portraits of that, as these figures seem to be sort of taming the world around them and building up society. And then at some point in the drawing, in the cave carvings as you go along, there are smaller humanoid figures that stand at a lower height than the most predominant figures of the time that you're seeing building these structures. And these larger figures seem to be taking these smaller figures as slaves or something like that. They seem to be doing most of the work, building fantastic castles and fortresses and things like that. And then at some point, you begin to make out carvings of another type of creature, but this one is bestial. It's not humanoid of any kind, and you can recognize it's some sort of flying creature, but it's hard to tell because the carvings are so crude. And the larger figures, not the enslaved ones, seem to be, the carvings begin to depict epic struggles between these bestial winged creatures and the slave owner group. And there's dozens of these encounters between and clashes between these two types of creatures. And that's basically where the carvings end. And the cave wall, though still smooth, is uncarved.
Can I roll history to see if I know what civilization that's depicting?
Sure, you'd be at disadvantage.
Okay,
I'd like to roll too.
it's not bad. That's not good either. History is intelligence. That is a 14.
And
With
mine's
a
just
14?
straight roll.
With a 14 hunter, you're not sure.
Okay.
You know, like the thing that stands out to you is that you know there were several races of the early world that kept sort of perceived lesser races as slaves. And then, you know, of course, the silver dragons and the other metallic dragons came and gave magic to those races, and then they revolted. That sort of thing.
Would I roll at disadvantage?
No, you'd be fine. What did Harmony get?
8.
I got
Yeah.
23.
I know what Max taught us. Basically.
The drawings are too crude to make out anything, and it's not triggering anything in your memory. But Thaddeus, you know that there was a monstrous race of the southern continent of the world, a continent which is largely covered in ice at this point in time, and doesn't have too much interaction with the rest of the world. But they were said to be humanoids of tremendous size, giants, if you will. And this seems to be, like, the size depiction alone seems to be showing a humanoid race of your size and then larger figures.
So I'll tell the rest that it doesn't make sense for these carvings to be here because the giants shown here live in the south.
Well, I mean, this place was underwater. Who's to say it hasn't migrated?
It's possible.
And that's an interesting thought.
This thing could have existed in the south at some point.
And then Kamiko says to Hunter, these carvings don't look like anything that I've ever seen.
Me neither. Thaddeus was just saying that they depict a civilization that was in the southern continent.
That doesn't make any sense if this is a pathway to the Elderhaven Reaches.
Yeah, we're all saying sort of the same thing as ourselves right now.
And she sort of lapses back into pondering. And the Drowning Kiss progresses forward for another few minutes before you see worked stone on either side of you again, this time forming an Elderhaven Reaches style arch, which you've seen several times on Kamekame Island. And the stonework here seems to be older and more worn, even than the carvings. And you pass through that, and then it's a few minutes more before you pass through another one, and then a few minutes more before you pass through a third. But when you pass through a third, there's a strange tingling sensation that just each of you experiences, just a slight tingle.
I look
And then
around
it
to see if my
passes.
wild magic went off.
And
Like static electricity.
I look at my
yeah,
shadow.
just sort of a
Yeah,
brief little spark or tingle. And then, not but a moment after that tingle occurs, you start to hear a sound. And as you look behind you, the water just beyond that third arch seems to be rising, but it doesn't rise on your side of the arch. The water level stays where it is, but water then begins to rise up and fill the chamber behind you. So you're just looking at a wall of water beyond the third arch.
Oh, weird.
Are we sinking?
Can we tell the thing is submerging right now?
You can roll a perception check.
Okay. Let's see, perception. It's a 17.
20, yeah. The two of you, as you sort of are observing this effect and listening to the rumbling around you, because the entire, like the walls seem to be rumbling as well. You start to notice like a pressure difference on your ears, and you get that popping feeling, and it occurs to you that you're probably sinking down into the ocean.
Yeah, we're going under.
We're diving.
Well, how many of us can breathe underwater?
I can polymorph myself for an hour.
I'm good.
You have that potion.
I wasted the potion.
And Kamiko can't speak. She doesn't know what you're talking about. Never mind. She's just looking bewildered back at the wall of water that is formed there.
But the water isn't rising up around us.
Right, it's
No.
just
Stop
behind
at
the
the
ceiling off
RPI.
your right side.
We're in our own little bubble.
Alright.
But
Okay, so
just in case it caves in, I'm good.
I'll be fine.
Wonderful.
alright, so we're
I hope you're a
still
good
in
swimmer,
the tunnel,
Penny.
though.
Keep moving forward. Yeah, the tunnel hasn't branched. It's still a straightforward passage.
Okay.
Are we still inside the big? That's the thing.
Presumably.
Okay.
And you basically just have black stone on either side of you.
Okay, that's all we can do. Keep going.
Okay. You okay?
Was the Elderhaven Reaches underwater?
Maybe this is the only way to bypass that cloud.
Yeah,
Just
this
to go under
pathway
it.
is new to both of us, and I point towards Kamiko.
How much leeway did you say was above us?
Above you, there's more than to the sides.
20,
Your
30 feet.
mast is like just below the cavern ceiling.
Okay, so there's no breaks in it or anything that we've encountered so far. It's all
No,
solid.
not yet.
Okay.
And the Drowning Kiss continues forward a little bit more until the cavern actually opens up a little bit on all sides. So you actually have you're unable by the light of Thaddeus's sword to see the walls on the sides. Harmony, you can see they're maybe 50, 60 feet off. Same with the ceiling, it goes up, but not out of sight. And this cavern, as you go forward, you begin to notice that also the water seems to be getting more shallow because you're starting to hear scraping sounds from underneath the boat. And eventually, it grinds to a halt, seemingly landed. And as you look down from the bow of the ship, you see that there is a plain stone tunnel sort of laid out before you, which comes to a culmination at a dark stone beach where it meets the water.
When that happened, did we get a window?
If you look up at the parrot, you notice that he's actually sort of got his head tucked down. It looks like he's sleeping.
Because it's dark.
Yeah.
Because it's dark. It's nighttime. Well,
I hope this isn't as far as the Drowning Kiss goes. Be ashamed to lose her at this
I
point.
can always bring us back to it.
It's true.
Can't exactly sail her backwards.
Kamiko says to Hunter,
Mm-hmm.
I suppose this is as far as the boat goes. Do we disembark now?
Yeah, I think so. We're figuring everything out right now.
I guess grab everything you think you're gonna need.
Yep.
But I know when we'll come back here.
So I'll tell Kamiko, let's grab our things and go.
Sail didn't go through too much trouble to get that key back.
Alright, so do you guys hop down onto the beach?
Yeah.
Okay. You sort of hop down into the shallows of the waters and begin to make your way onto the beach. As you're beginning to make your way out of the very shallow portion of the water and onto the beach, there is a swift flurry of movement from behind you. Something that was unseen underneath the waves rises up, and as you're turning around, all you can see by the light of Thaddeus' sword is a group of creatures that are rushing up out of the water. There seems to be 10 or so of them,
Oh.
and they're rushing straight towards you. And I actually need you guys to roll initiative
Okay.
as I draw a map.
Can I see what they are?
Yeah, I'll describe them better in a second.
Wow. Really good.
I missed! I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yes.
Oh my god.
This is
Well, at
gonna
least
be
you have a big
great.
bonus to your initiative.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I don't believe I'll tell.
Were you on?
Oh, what?
Oh gosh.
Okay, good job, one of us. Not gonna get my bonus this time.
Turn on the map before I forget.
You want me to go?
Oh, shoot, that's really rough center.
I did. I rolled a 7.
I'm going between you and Biasco.
I rolled a 7 with advantage.
Wow.
Yeah. You got a 7 and a 1.
Yeah, you guys can sort of place yourselves in the shallows of that.
Oh
Okay.
my god.
Yeah.
Bringing my rep with me, by the way.
Bringing your rat with you.
And,
So
oh,
you say we
ask-
can place ourselves where exactly?
Sort of in the
Share
shallows.
it on the ship.
Oh, okay.
Right, okay.
Hmm?
We want them to share it on the ship for learning.
I mean, for now, if the parent wants to follow us, that's a big stuff.
Mara? Where's Mara?
Yeah,
Is
I'll
my
be-
light sparkle summon?
Yeah, I established that. We start with me.
I'll be
Probably
beside
sounds like our viewers.
Harmony.
Right next door or just?
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you want? You and
You
my
said
partner?
they're coming from the
Oh,
water.
alright.
right?
Oh,
Okay.
from the water, so we have to
Okay.
face the other
Yeah,
Do you want me
turn
to
us
just do
around
this?
and face the other way.
Huh?
Turn
They're
us
coming
around,
from the
they're
water.
coming from the water.
Oh, okay. Let's reposition.
Let's get cute, so, yeah.
Oh, so tiny.
Little kitty.
It's like when the tiger from Aladdin got turned into a kitty. What's the tiger's name? I forgot.
Raja.
Yep, that's exactly what this is.
Jesus.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is this all the cards?
Getting our bad rolls out early for some of us.
We're a little rusty.
Oh, it's high today.
Didn't see so.
I mean, that was an average roll for Harmony.
Thaddeus has been at the bottom of the initiative.
I just
for a while.
usually roll
Yeah.
under 10 for initiative, and this time I rolled above the 10.
Okay.
But
Um,
How are your landlings, guys?
By the light of Thaddeus' sword, the group of you can see pretty much all of these creatures as they're rushing towards you out of the darkness. They seem to be bipedal creatures of some kind with scaly skin that seems like drawn tight over their bodies. And they have, it's green skin as well. And they have turtle-like shells on their back. Their shells are almost like bladed and serrated, and they're kind of wicked looking. And then their heads, continuing the sort of scaly pattern, culminate in like hooked beaks, and they have these red glowing eyes. But their most striking feature, which is what immediately identifies them to Hunter, is that they have a cavity at the top of their head that seems to be filled with water. And Hunter, you would recognize them as Kappa
Okay.
from the Elderhaven Reaches. And they begin to rush towards you, and Byakko is up first.
Are they spirits?
Actually, they would get a surprise round because they had a really good stealth roll.
You
But
didn't
then,
have us roll. Perception.
I have. Does it beat our passive perception?
what's
Barely
Byakko's
got
passive
the
perception?
Mine's
I know.
22,
He doesn't give us a chance to
and
be like, I don't know what
Byakko's
perception
is
Or like, no, I'm surprised.
22 as well.
That's what passive perception's for. Unless you say you're rolling, it's passive.
I'm just
Sorry, it's
complaining
24?
because you,
Ours, mine and Byakko's are both 22.
because I've been wanting
Okay.
to say I want to roll perception, but I'm waiting for him to finish.
Okay, roll a perception check. Do it.
It's not going to beat whatever your stealth was.
Alright, then stop complaining. The stealth
Well.
was,
Ethan.
the stealth was 21.
I'm
So
allowed to
Byakko
complain.
and Hunter will get to act this turn.
Okay.
So Byakko's up first then.
Okay, Byakko will.
Oh, jeez.
leap and pounce at this one.
Okay.
Automatically assume they're evil, but we want to try to attack.
I mean, they're kind of rushing to attack us.
What do I know about
Plus, they get a surprise round too. so-
Kappa being?
Yeah, they are a
Yeah,
spirit.
we're gonna see if
They are. Oh, okay.
We're
We're gonna see what they
also
want.
intent first
These
before
are-
we
these
get
are-
a turn at all.
I mean, maybe they're going to die then.
Okay. For your beast companion,
Mm.
for when you're fighting your favorite enemy, do they get additional bonuses as well?
I would say so.
Because I
I
think
don't
there's.
think we ever applied it to women.
No, we didn't.
Okay. For the sake of time, I will look it up on your guys' turn.
Mm.
I will just do my normal
I
attacks.
want your copy.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Stay with my computer.
It's, yeah, I know you pushed it.
He places.
I got a 17.
17 hits.
Okay.
This thing has scaly skin, and Byakko like has to struggle to bite into it. But
Okay. And then he has to make a DC 12 strength saving throw. Also, I'm gonna fight him.
Strength saving throw is 13.
Okay, so he passes. I'm gonna do 1 hit though. With my D4 hiding. That is 6.
All right. Anything else from Byakko?
Mm-mm.
Okay, then it is their turn.
Okay.
Uh,
Here it is.
so this is the 25. They'll double move.
That's fine, okay, yeah.
Double moving.
So you get 3 on that side.
Hello, friends.
They're ignoring Thaddeus because he's on Moonlight Sparkle. That one's fine.
Well, I mean, they're gonna take OAs if they do this.
That's
no,
fine.
you don't. Well, you don't have a turn this round, so you
Oh,
do you get
yeah,
reaction?
You don't get a reaction on this.
So the ones on the right side made it up to you guys without issue. The ones on the left side, none of them get to attack you guys, except for Byakko. And Byakko, they're going to work together to grab Byakko. They're not rolling very well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's only a. Jeez, I wish I looked at their stat board ahead of time. 11. So you need to make an opposed dexterity or athletics or acrobatics.
Okay. Can do that. It's gonna be athletics. Oh boy. 7.
Oh, okay. What did I say?
11.
11. Yep. So they do manage to grab onto Byakko,
Okay.
and then it looks like they're going to start pulling Byakko back towards the water.
Okay.
And they're going to do the same. The two that are next to Harmony are going to do the same to her,
I
and the
thought
two
they
that are
couldn't
next
attack
to
these.
No,
the ones on this side.
Oh, okay.
Look, which two?
The ones on the left, like the one that's by Hunter.
These two.
Okay. They're trying to grapple me?
So athletics or acrobatics.
Hmm.
You're looking for a 17.
Smash you. Yeah, that's a 19 on die.
Okay.
Boom.
So 25.
Yeah, these things come up at you and try and grab at you with their webbed, slippery hands.
Do I have to roll twice?
Nope.
Oh.
Just once. Because they're working together, so they have
Oh.
advantage. So yeah, you manage to slip and duck and dive out of the way of them. And then the other two will try and grab Mara. So Mara, you're looking for a 19 on your acrobatics or athletics check.
That's good.
23.
Is that one of your proficiencies?
Yeah.
So this is a 10.
Okay, so
Okay.
25.
That's
So
the
then,
lowest you can ever roll on acrobatics is 25.
other than Byakko, everyone manages to avoid being grabbed by these creatures, but they're just basically like flailing at you and making these weird clicking noises with their beaks, trying to coordinate their grabs.
Okay.
That's their turn. Harmony, you're up.
It's my turn.
It's Harmony's turn.
No.
Oh, wait, yeah, but
It's a surprise round.
Why do I
Excuse me.
roll?
Actually.
My brain was not ready for this.
Yeah, I was like, wait, but it's a surprise round and I
Hunter,
didn't.
go.
Yes. I will. I guess I will run towards. Well. Yeah. Maybe I'll help Yaka. I'm gonna take a lot of hits though, so I'll get my sword and shield out. Oh, I can't actually just run through them, right? I have to go around.
You can go through Kamiko, because she's an ally.
Oh, that's Kamiko. Oh yeah. So 1, 2.
They might grab you though.
Are they gonna do that? No, don't do that.
They'll try and make attacks,
Something.
just for simplicity. 18,
Miss.
lower than that.
Miss.
22,
Hit.
and the last one, a 25.
Hit.
Okay.
I can do the same.
Did he take 4?
Yeah.
He's still in.
These two and these two.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that one.
Yeah.
Far one was
He was kind of surrounded.
So that's 9 points of slashing damage.
Okay.
And you're grappled, actually, by the first one that manages to grab you.
Okay.
I didn't know they could grapple as part of their...
So that would mean I took it here-ish, right?
Yep. So he manages to grab onto you.
Okay.
And
So
then the other one that hit you does 11 points of slashing damage, and he grapples onto you as well.
oh my gosh, I'm double grappled. So that is
I feel like
Well-
that must put you here if two of them are on you.
Well, if the first one, the one that's in front of Harmony was the first one that got you, you wouldn't have been
Yeah.
able to leave.
then I
That's
couldn't even
true.
move.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
That's true. I didn't think about that. Yeah. Okay. Well, poops. I guess I will just stab at the ones that are next to me.
Probably the ones that are grappling you are.
Yes, I am attacking one of the two that is grappling me. Okay. So does a 17 hit?
It does.
Okay, that's the lowest I got. So 3 hits. I'm gonna use the electric damage on one of them. Do you need the? It's all magic damage, so I don't know if you need it.
Nope.
Okay. 10, 13 plus 5 is 18 plus 6 plus 8. So 18 plus.
14.
Hang on,
None of us were prepared for that.
sorry. 18 plus 24.
So,
So that's
42?
30, 42. Yeah.
okay, that one that you stabbed into 3 times, like you lop off one of its limbs, like its leg or something like that, and stab several big gouges into it. It looks pretty bad.
It's not done now?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, then that would end the surprise round and bring it up to
Harmony?
Yako.
Yeah.
Oh, Yako.
And then-
Okay.
And then Harmony.
Yako's gonna try and break the grapple.
Okay.
Oh, I could be more damage.
Oh, shit.
You're looking for a 21.
Miss. Definitely not
Not
this one.
before.
Nope.
No.
So that doesn't work.
So yeah, Yako is struggling against them, but they just managed to. They seem to have like a wrestler's hold on him. Like they're experts at grabbing onto things, and they are continuing to drag Yako backwards, which is what they're going to do now. So that's 5,
Poor Byako's not had good luck with water.
15,
No.
20, 25. So Byako is submerged underwater. And then
Alright, let's see. Yako.
they didn't manage to grab onto anyone, did they?
Except me.
Except Hunter.
Bring me to Yako.
And then this one, Lonely, is going to come up to Thaddeus since it can't get in to grab anyone. And I guess since they can grapple on attacks, they'll just make attacks. So Hunter,
Mm-hmm.
well, you're already grappled, so they'll just drag you.
Yeah.
So they can
Let's go.
half their movement.
So it's the 2 in front of me and him that are grappling him.
Off I go.
Well, they actually can't grab together, so one of them will let go of you.
Okay, see you.
25.
It's roll movement while they're dragging people.
He's dashing. So
Yeah, I think everyone's dashing. They're all there.
it's actually this one.
Matt,
I was
stop.
thinking that I was trying, he's quicker than me. I was trying to think of something funny, but he's quick tonight.
Does this work? Does this work on every attack I do in one turn?
Mhm.
Okay, I didn't add that last time, so.
Let me see.
But it doesn't work for Bianca.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, but every time you attack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the first time I've been able to use it.
I know how that feels.
It's like with the electric thing.
Yeah,
No,
As someone
my
who
actual
picks
ranger abilities.
Celestials is
Well,
my favorite enemy.
Kameko
Mhm.
takes a little bit of damage from one of them, ends up getting clawed by it, and then begins to be dragged towards the ocean as well.
This way?
Yeah, they can't really move. Well, they could move on this turn. So
You
yeah,
move half your speed, I think.
so they can move 10 feet that direction if you wouldn't mind. And then
This is far more probably.
the ones next to Harmony will make attacks. There's a 2 on the dice and a 3 on the dice. So no. They're,
Wait,
they're
wait,
clawing at
Can
you.
you say that one more time?
There's a 2 on the dice and a 3 on the dice. So no. They're clawing
I
at
don't
Harmony
believe this.
and can't get hold of her.
I don't believe it.
Then 2 will try for
Where
Mara.
are the natural 20s?
There's a 10 and a 3, so that's
Oh, they're
a
coming.
6.
What's wrong?
Does a
Your research
16
did work.
hit Mara? I don't
No.
think it does. Okay. So they're all clawing at Mara as well, can't get hold of her. And then there's just one there clawing at Thaddeus.
This is going to be better.
He rolls a 5.
Okay.
So they're trying to get hold of you, but not managing. That one that's on the ground, they're small creatures, so he's like leaping up at you and can't get hold of your foot. Then it's Harmony's turn.
Okay. Can I see Bianco?
Actually, the boat is kind of in the way, and he's underwater, so probably not.
Okay. Alright. Well, I'm gonna cast Word of Radiance. So everyone within 5 feet of me that are enemies
So those 2.
Three. Have to make Constitution saving throws.
It's what?
They all fail.
Word of Radiance. Good. That means they take 3d6 radiant damage. Thank you. And that's better than average? 12 radiant damage.
No, that's okay. I believe her better than average.
Better than average?
I'm only there to say
12
average.
on the 3d6. It's like, yeah. How are they looking? Especially the one in front of me that Hunter was wailing on earlier.
They recoil. Well, the one that Hunter was wailing on started dragging.
I thought it was the one that was in front of me, but okay. Never mind.
Because Hunter specifically said he was attacking the one that had him.
Yeah.
But they don't look happy about that. Like, you can see that they are used to the darkness, and so they recoil from the light. And it seems that you can see it sort of like burns the water off of them a little bit.
Cool. Alright. Well, I don't know about OAs. If I move just one square this way, will I be able to see Bianco?
Like
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, you
There,
would.
so I only take one away.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna do that.
That one's probably going to hit you at 19.
Yeah, and
So
if I
you're-
shield? No, if I shield, it'll still help me.
Oh.
So
Damn
then
it.
your grapple then can't move, actually.
Okay, fuck it all.
And you take
I tried to.
I'm trying to save your boy.
9 points of slashing damage from its claws.
9 points of slashing damage. Cool. Then I would like to do Quicken Spell
Okay.
and cast Dimension Door. And I'm gonna go on top of the ship right above where Bianco is.
Oh,
But on
nice.
the ship.
Like up here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have visual on Bianco.
Okay.
Poor pal.
Go ahead and check for wild magic, and then move on to Hunter.
It's my
This
turn?
one.
Wait, but I didn't roll higher than
Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
You
you
roll higher.
One higher than she
She had an 8.
You got a 9, she got an 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Well, this guy's gonna die, I think. So I'm gonna do some attacking instead.
You'll probably
Barely
just
know
need
wild
one.
magic.
Did you roll a 2?
I rolled a 5.
Well, the first attack. Oh, that's not very high though. It's a well, 17, I guess.
That hits.
Okay. And that is 12 plus 5, so 17.
Yeah, you run that one through and sort of kick it off your blade back into the water.
Okay.
And it is dead.
And I will start running in the direction of where the up and comic are going.
Grab
So
your
this one's.
trophy.
Oh, yes. And I'll go. Can I go here? Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I will attack twice more at. Are either of those wounded?
Neither of those. Actually,
Like, yeah, I could see one who's wounded anybody.
Yep. those
Okay.
ones are not
And
wounded.
I'll make 2 attacks
I guess
against
not.
those.
I did
Ignore
the 3 that were
Those
not.
rolls a 20.
Those all hit then.
Then these will do 9 plus. I guess that's just a straight plus 10, so that's 29.
Okay.
For 2 hits.
Yeah, he looks up at you and like clicks his beak at you, and you can see his beak is actually lined with teeth, but that's not something unfamiliar to you. The water in his head sort of supernaturally remaining still. Mara, it's your turn.
Okay, I'm gonna get out. Raging.
Okay.
Raging.
The range
Um,
and
I was gonna do thunderstep to kind of save Biako, but I think Harmony would get hurt now since she's close.
No.
I can.
The thunder triggers from where you start, so you
So
get
it
all
hit
3
all
next
these
to you.
guys, all 4 of them.
Yeah.
Then you
Okay.
can go somewhere.
That's
You wanted
actually
to
a good
get away.
idea. Yeah.
That's
Okay,
like
well, let
the,
me do that
the
then.
purpose of
Yeah, you
that
could.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could
I
come.
thought I could teleport first, grab something, and then teleport back.
No,
You
you
can-
can only teleport one way.
Okay.
Oh, you're thinking about taking someone with you?
Yeah.
Yeah, but she already left. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, I'm over. But I'm on
Yeah,
top
yeah.
of the ship, so I don't know.
No, you're good.
Okay. So yeah. So I'll do thunderstep
Where do you want to go?
and
So they all need to make con saves.
yeah.
Has to be a space you can see within range, so you can't get to
So
the
you
other
can't
So you
get
can-
to where
you
Biako
can
is,
come
but you
over
can get
here
where I
if you
am up
Yeah.
on the
Or you
ship.
can go here. If you wanted to do an attack this turn, you can
Yeah,
go
let
over.
me
Oh
go
wait,
back- let me
that's an
go-
action, isn't it? Or is it?
Yeah, it's an act.
Okay, so
Let me
never
go
mind.
back up on the ship because then I can use my bow or throw the daggers or whatever.
Yeah.
Not this turn, though.
Not this turn,
Not
but
this turn,
she'll be
yeah.
in a better position.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
And the DC on the dagger is
On the dagger.
It's on the item card.
Oh, the item.
The card.
On
17.
17.
okay.
I knew
They
I
all
wrote it
fail
down
their
there.
DC, so they all take the damage.
Nice.
How much is it?
On this
At a
one.
4th level, right? Yeah. So then you're looking at.
Gosh, I should know this by heart.
Well, you
Yeah,
haven't
but
used it.
I'm using
yet.
like twice.
So it's right here. So it's 3d10, and then it's a 4th level, so it's next to your d10, right?
So
then it's
40d10.
4d10.
Do you need some D10s?
Here's 4d10.
Here's 2 more.
Okay.
Seriously, I remember doing this.
I think you've only done it like once. That's actually pretty good.
27.
27. Dang.
Yeah, 2 9s.
Cool. Above average.
The ones who take that damage do not look happy about it, as sort of you see the water actually slosh in their heads a little bit before you disappear and then reappear. Also, a little bit of stone crumbles down from the ceiling, just due to the
from the
thunderous
glass.
burst of sound.
Oh, the shockwave.
Then it's Kamiko's turn. And she is going to just punch the one that Hunter's already stabbed a few times. Actually, she'll whip out those daggers that she's got.
Her
Does, she,
daggers.
does Kamiko react any to seeing Mara do this?
She hasn't had time to react yet, but probably.
She's been on the other side of the ship too. I don't think she was within.
I
know, but like,
yeah, I used to be able
just
to do
now,
that.
Kamiko saw Mara use the unmistakable quality that her daggers used to have.
I used to be able to do that.
Kamiko hits all 3 times. dealing a total of 30 damage
Nice, we got Comic-Con.
and killing the one that was grappling her.
Trophy for Comic-Con.
You watch as she sort of like artfully spins the daggers out. This is the first time you've actually seen her fight, and she stabs once like in the shoulder, and she seems to hit a pressure point because that arm goes limp, and then she stabs once just under the shell, and you watch as like one of its legs goes limp, and then she just takes the last dagger and swipes it across the thing's neck, and it just
Nice.
falls backwards.
Oh,
Good job,
wow.
Comic-Con.
It's almost surgical. And then it is Thaddeus'
Should
turn.
take her with us.
Thaddeus is gonna go help Yakko.
I think Bianco's good, Daddy.
Yeah.
Harmony calls from the ship. I've got Bianco! Everyone calm down!
We're all like,
I've got a plan!
In that case, Thaddeus just rises up in the air a little bit to where the
The one that
copper can't reach him.
was flailing at your legs will try and like get Moonlight Sparkle, and it'll just try and grapple on as you fly up.
Take it with you.
Natural one, so it
Like kicks him.
yeah, it like gets on a hoof, but then Moonlight Sparkle kicks the hoof, and the thing goes tumbling down to the cave floor.
And then I think he's gonna cast Moonbeam.
Nice.
So it'll get these two right here.
Okay.
And that's a Constitution saving throw.
Two of them. There's an 18 and a
Okay.
15.
18 passes. So 14 radiant damage.
Okay. One of them dies.
Nice.
There he is. He's back.
Did you take your trophy?
Oh yeah.
And then, to your horror, you begin to see several more emerge from the water, as if to take the places of their fallen comrades. They're just sort of crawling forward over the bodies of the others.
Oh dear.
But from the back edge of the cave, standing in the darkness, a figure emerges that you hadn't seen before. Even with your perception check from before. And your passive perceptions, yep.
My perception check that I rolled, by the way, was the same as my passive perception. So I was like, ah!
When things don't work out in your favor. This figure being, as it sort of comes into the light from Thaddeus' sword, all of you can see that this is actually a type of creature that you guys have seen before.
It's a grease
It's two Gurries!
It's two Gurries!
Paddled in the ocean.
They followed us here!
They're conjoined.
Surfed on this line.
No, Harmony and Hunter have seen this type of creature
Okay.
before. The others haven't. It's tall. Maybe it might be like 10 feet tall if it weren't standing hunched. But it has this lanky, lean, muscular body with long arms that it sort of drags on the ground as it walks, or it drags one of them. And it has this long, bedraggled black hair and sort of smooth, oily green skin. You saw these creatures when you fell into a hole. Nasria fell into a hole, tumbled down, and there were some trolls down there.
Yeah.
But it's carrying under one of its under one of its arms, what looks like a giant, like a large green tube. And it takes the tube and throws it almost like a javelin into the water. And as it does so, it shouts out in common, "Leave these people alone, you foul beasts!" And as the thing sails through the air, you actually all recognize it to be like an enlarged, perhaps to the size of like, it's a good frame of reference. Like the length of a pool noodle and maybe the width of a watermelon, cucumber that just goes sailing into the water. And as it goes, you watch the beady red eyes of all the kappa turn in its direction, and they begin to like run in that direction, like head over foot in the direction of the cucumber.
They do love cucumbers.
And it just splashes into the water. That is his turn. Then it is Yakko.
Okay. Yakko's gonna try and get out of the grapple again.
Okay.
That's better.
He only needs to be an 8 this time.
18.
Okay. Yeah, he struggles free. Even under the water, the kappa can't seem to hold him.
Okay. So he'll break free and I think he'll just swim a little bit closer to surface, like that, so he
Okay.
doesn't get grappled again.
Yeah, his head comes above water at that point, and he's looking bedraggled and wet.
Poor kitty.
Then it's their turn, and they all begin to retreat into the water and beneath the dark waves. After this cucumber, which is over around here somewhere.
Okay,
So those two disappear. You can make an attack if you want.
sure.
That's it.
That'll hit. That is 15.
Yeah, they all so far won't get into the water. And you're up in the air, so they can
Yeah.
just go straight underneath you.
There's no ability to.
So those ones all make it into the water. Let's see if you kill one more. That was the one that was next to Comico. Yeah, you would kill that one too. Have another trophy.
Hooray!
And the ones that were coming to reinforce this group of Kappa also disappear into the water. And the area where the cucumber is, basically you just begin to see like splashing and tearing at the cucumber.
So is that like food for them?
Yes.
Unclear? Harmony, it's your turn. We're going to stay in this for just till the end of the round, I think. Do you have anything you want to do?
Well, considering the fact that my plan was to rescue Bianco and he kind of rescued himself, or the troll rescued him.
Yeah.
No, I don't have anything to do. I'm just going to stand there and watch the troll carefully.
Okay. After he threw the cucumber, he just kind of like seems to like lean forward watching, his two lanky arms dangling on the ground, like long wicked claws sort of pointed back away from you. Hunter.
Where is he?
Oh, I didn't
Back
put that
here.
on the map. Yeah, he's like back here. He would
I
have had to
will-
run forward to throw the cucumber, so maybe more like here.
I'll wait for Byako to come to land, and then I'll start walking towards the bigger patrol.
Then it's Mara.
Yeah, I'll go to the front of the boat again.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
get a better view.
Yeah, and when you get to the front of the boat, you can see the same figure, just about as clearly as anyone else. And then Kamiko, you notice Kamiko on her turn, she's sort of looking up in your direction with squinted eyes. It's kind of hard to tell what she's thinking exactly.
Except those are my
Thaddeus, anything
fingers.
you want to do?
Look at she's looking at me.
Yeah.
No, I think she's
Oh,
Oh no,
She's
she's
looking
looking
at
at
Mara.
Mara.
Oh, she's looking at her.
uh-oh.
What is it?
Anything from Thaddeus?
Oh, I think that is just lands in front of the troll. That's
Okay.
what's up between the troll and the rest of the
You
party.
can see that its eyes really narrow as you get close to it with the light, but it doesn't seem to like shirk away or try and run and hide or anything like that. It's just kind of like surveying the group of you and the cucumber being devoured by the kappa in the background.
Is there other light here? Just my sword.
Just your sword. Then let's drop initiative for now since no one is fighting anymore.
Okay.
Um,
They're fighting a cucumber.
well, yeah. Cucumber doesn't have stats though. So that fight will end quickly. As Thaddeus, you land in front of the troll creature, it just sort of looks you up and down and says, I guess you probably had it on your own.
Well, I did, but the rest of them probably didn't.
You've got confidence. I like that. Kick your ass. And then it begins to sort of walk around the front of the boat and get a good look at the rest of you. And you can see its eyes alight on Kamiko, and then linger there for a little while, and then move to Hunter. And one of the trollish, like bushy eyebrows raises for a second, and then the eyes return to Thaddeus. And it says, well, I guess you're the leader of this group.
Wait,
Thaddeus
Jackal?
starts to say yes, and then like looks back at Kamiko and Hunter and says, "Maybe not this time."
No.
Okay.
Okay. Well, who should I talk to then?
Those two. He motions off to.
At that point, we're already sort of approaching.
Okay. It sort of, again, looks Hunter up and down and says, I've never seen one that looks like you.
Well, you haven't seen a lot of things then.
I've seen a fair few things. We don't get many visitors down here, though, so I don't see many of your size. And he's like, if you were standing tall and not so hunched, he'd be like 10 feet tall, so he'd be even taller than you.
Yeah.
But as he is in his hunched form, he's probably just standing at about your height.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit more bulk to the sides,
Sure.
but
Well, it's not that necessarily easy to get into this place, so I'm not surprised.
that's true. We've been here for a while, though, so... well, I guess you'll be wanting to go further in, then?
That's the plan.
Where are we, by the way?
Well, that's an interesting question, because we could be literally anywhere at this point, as long as there's ocean.
I told you, Fatty!
I didn't disbelieve you.
Can you direct? Where are we in right now?
Well, legends call it the vessel, but I suppose none alive today, at least in my clan, really know what exactly it is.
Can you direct it?
I
Steer the
can't.
vessel?
I can't, but some of the leaders of the other clans further in might be able to.
So if we had a destination, they could help us get us there?
Yeah, but they're not going to want to deal with you. I'm just going to say that straight out. They
Well-
don't tend to like small folk like you.
What if we looked like you?
You just call me small.
They don't much like dealing with me either.
I see.
And then his eyes kind of brighten for a second. He says, actually, we might be able to help each other out in that regard. Yeah, we can go back to my clan and we can talk about it over a meal if you like.
Can I insight check him?
Yeah, sure.
And
Yeah, the guys were just like that.
I'd like to start off with introductions too, so we can learn his name.
Yours is better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 19.
19? Let me just see.
With your pipe.
With a 19, yeah, like you've never heard about, what did Thaddeus get?
Oh, a 5.
Okay. I mean, he doesn't seem to mean you any ill will. That's what you'd get. Harmony, you've never heard in all of your travels, since trolls are a creature that, like, your tribe would have run into probably frequently. You've never heard of one that had the intellect to hold a conversation like this. So there's something a bit weird.
But I don't get any, like,
Yeah, he doesn't
bad
seem.
vibes.
He doesn't seem. When his eyes perked up and he said maybe we can help each other out. That seemed like he had a genuine idea that he wants to discuss with you.
okay.
You're gonna want to let me go in and just talk to everybody in advance. Make sure they don't try and eat you. But I can guarantee it. I'm something of a leader among them.
What's for dinner? Not more fish, I hope.
Well, we can actually get quite a variety of food. Some of the ogres are fans of stew. They're fans of just about anything, though. So,
Streamy.
Well, after 2 weeks, I'm a fan of anything that's the fish.
all right, we can make some vegetable stew. We get plenty of vegetables from the bigger ones further in. So, and he begins to sort of shamble down the tunnel. And then Mari, you said you wanted to
Yeah,
introduce
hey,
yourself.
I'm Rob. By
So
the
you
way.
kind of jog up behind him because he's not moving quickly. And he looks you up and down and says, "Ah, nice to meet you. I'm Shuten." I guess I should have introduced myself. And he shouts back to the group of you, "The name's Shuten. You can call me Shu if you want, if that's easier. Or Ten. It doesn't really matter.
You look like
Okay.
10 times.
Most of the members of my clan aren't smart enough to use names anyways."
Okay, so I guess we'll wait here.
No, you can come with me.
Okay, I thought he was going to go first.
I'll let you know when we get close.
Okay, yeah, let's go.
And yeah, so he begins to lead you through.
Give Piako a little scratch on the ear as we walk.
He like leans into it. He loves it.
I had you covered, buddy.
He's all wet though, and he doesn't look happy about that.
I prestidigitation him.
Oh, okay.
Try.
Yeah, as you like magic blow dry him, he gets all fluffy, like fluffier than he was before.
Hi, you're so cute.
And Hunter, having spoken with him quite a bit, you can like see in his eyes that he feels a little bit of like disgrace at how fluffy he is right now, but he's happy not to be wet.
Yeah.
Shu leads you forward down the tunnel, and it sort of widens into bigger caves every now and again. And eventually he stops just before one of those like widening larger caves, and says, "Just wait here." And you can sort of see in the distance of this cave, there's like a fire flickering, and you can see movement around it in the darkness. You can't necessarily make out what it is. And he says, "I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure everyone knows no harm comes to you, your visitors. I'll come back in a few minutes." And then he just sort of, when he gets a few feet away, and then he turns around again and says, "It really is fortuitous timing that you've come here. We were just trying to think about what we were going to do, and you seem like just the people for the job, so..." And he then begins to shamble back down through the cave,
Where have I heard that one before?
leaving you in silence for a few minutes if you want to talk about anything yourselves.
So, like, this is weird. Trolls aren't usually that smart. And he said the rest of the group isn't smart enough to use names, so, like, what is going on with this guy?
That's a great question.
He seems genuinely nice, or he doesn't want to eat us, so that's good. I've never met a troll in my life that could hold a conversation like that.
Me neither.
I didn't know
Have
many
you ever
trolls.
met a troll, though?
Once or twice.
Only the ones that we met.
We met some.
Yeah.
That's
That
kind
were
of
just
good.
hungry.
Not the ones that we knew.
Don't know if I call that cooking.
I never met a
Harmony, you
troll.
would remember that the trolls that you met hated fire. So if things come to it, you should be sad.
Thank you, DM, for giving me enemies like this. Potential enemies like this.
So his evil genius is that he's getting allies like this.
Hey, I can always turn on them.
That's true.
World domination, one troll at a time.
While they're gone, Mara, Kamiko comes up to you
Oh no.
Here it comes.
and
Oh, yeah.
sort of taps you on the shoulder and says, "Daggers?" and raises an eyebrow.
Oh god.
They're nice, aren't they?
And she holds out the two that she got from Redwater, and just so that you can see them, and says, she looks like she's struggling for words, and she turns to Hunter and says, "Can you ask her if she's using my daggers?"
Oh no.
And so I'll look at Mara and be like, "You know what you did." What did you say for yourself?
At the time, she wasn't using them.
I know.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Does she
And
want
so,
them back? Can I buy them?
I'll explain to Kamiko that she was, in other words, like a zombie, and when we met her, and so Mara took them, and then when she returned to life, then
Mara also didn't take them off her body. Like she
That's
got
true, she found
one dagger from the war chief,
Oh,
and
yeah,
the other
one
one
from-
from the Grum.
That's
the
true.
frog
Yeah.
person.
Okay. So we would go through that. They weren't even on her person then.
Better belt was.
Yeah. the
Oh,
belt-
you took the belt though?
Yeah, he took
Yeah.
the belt with like the ornate sheath.
That's what it was. Yeah. I knew we took something from her.
Mhm.
But then I'll ask, like, do you want them back? She has been using them. At this point.
She sort of gives Mara a long thinking
Man.
look, right? You can see that she's thinking about something quite seriously.
Yeah.
And she says, "No, she can hold on to them for now."
Can I roll insight on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, if you let me take
16.
a look at your daggers. I might be
Yeah,
able
there's like a reason. Like she thought long and hard about it, and she came to a conclusion based on a reason. Like you can tell that there was some foundational idea that led her to the conclusion that Mara is okay to hold on to them for now.
So I'll just ask her, not because I want Mara to lose her daggers, but just out of curiosity, because I know that if I was petrified or whatever, and then someone was using my bow, I would absolutely want it back. And so I would just try and ask her, like,
Well,
What's bringing that on? Like,
well, Hunter, I would like to ask her how she lost it in the first place. Were they stolen while she was petrified?
I'm guessing that was the case, but I can ask her that too.
Since we found them in other places.
Yeah, if you interpret that, she says, yes, when I entered the spirit realm to search for my mother's spirit, they were still on my person, so they must have been taken from me while I slept for those many years.
Hunter on the arm.
Yes.
Not to pry or interject, but if she wants, I might be able to enchant those daggers.
Oh, okay, I would relay that as well.
She shakes her head a little bit and says, no, that's not the issue. I initially wanted them back because they belonged to my mother before they belonged to me. But considering the feeling I have when I look at Mara, I think it's okay for her to hold on to them.
Okay,
At least for now, until we figure out why I feel this connection.
sure.
Okay, I'll tell her thank you very much. I've grown quite attached to them.
And
Awesome.
This is awkward.
she sort of just nods, and then, as if she's lost interest in the conversation or needs a little moment to process, sits down on the ground cross-legged and touches her hand to the ground and meditates for a moment before her eyes flutter open, and she says to Hunter, this is no mere stone on which we walk. There's ki flowing through it.
It's a living
The
creature.
energy of life I mentioned before. There's huge amounts of it.
That would make sense that it's a living creature.
It must be. I can't trace the source to where it is strongest, but there's no doubt about it that this is some life force.
Does Hunter relay that to the others?
Yeah, I can. Since we're all just kind of huddling around, okay, I'll just say, Kamiko, since it's key within this vessel that the troll is speaking of, so it must be a living creature.
I'm going to use Divine Sense then.
Okay. Divine Sense gets...
Celestials, Fiends, and Undead.
yeah, you extend that Divine Sense, which will alert you to the presence of danger, and nothing seems to alert your trained radar.
Nothing I'm familiar with. But then why would I suppose?
It just looks like rock. Like
Yeah.
rock.
And it feels like rock, too.
So can I squat in the corner and try to mold earth on it?
Mhm.
And see if I can manipulate it?
And yeah, it does a little bit. But it's resistant to it almost. As if it doesn't necessarily want to be shaped into the way that you want it to be.
Is this hurting you? I'm so sorry. I put it back to how it was.
There was no reaction from the cave around you or anything. There was still silence around.
A little bitch. I'm sorry if that hurts. I'm just playing.
I think, yeah, Thaddeus walks over to Harmony and says, Harmony, if you swallowed an ant, would you be able to hear its cries to you?
Doesn't matter. It can hear us.
What I'm saying is I don't think it can.
You don't know that.
To go back to the earlier metaphor, if you swallowed an ant, would you be able to hear what it was saying to you?
Like I said, you don't know that its ear isn't right here. Look, and I form an ear on the wall with mold earth.
Oh, man.
See?
That's just shaking his head.
I put it back to
And
normal.
leaves.
Yeah,
I'm
Kamiko
sorry,
is
I'm
shaking her
sorry.
head, too.
It's like, tell Kamiko, don't worry about it.
Flies on the wall, but
Not yours.
It's not long after that oh no, Harmony's theme is one that's no longer working in my music player. Why? I'll have to fix that later.
I'm gonna tell Harmony, you will soon receive an unusual gift.
I hope so. I did leave all those dragon scales with y'all.
Well, it's not long after that Shuten comes back, sort of dragging his arms across the cavern floor and says, all right, everyone's ready to meet you now.
They're not going to eat us, right?
No. In fact, they're actually quite full. They just ate.
Good.
And he sort of leads you forward to the place where you saw the fire. And as you get closer, you can actually see that it's a group of fires, and sitting around it, they seem to be laughing, joking, some of them fighting or wrestling in some way. Several large creatures, like maybe similar size to Shu, where they're like 8 feet to 10 feet tall, something like that. You recognize creatures you fought in the orcs camp, some ogres. There's one Etten, which is like a a large two-headed orc creature of some kind.
We fought one of those, right, too?
Yeah, you did, back in the orc camp. And then there's also a bunch of trolls. One of them actually, there's one troll that stands out amongst the rest that actually has like several heads growing from weird places and like limbs coming, like arms coming out of its legs and things. It looks like it's mutated
Oh my
a lot in a lot of different weird ways.
Wow.
Just basically this amalgamation of like 20 to 30 of these creatures. And they all kind of, as you step into the firelight, like stop their roughhousing and chatter in, do any of you speak Giant? They're all chatting in Giant.
No.
No. Okay. Yeah, they're all chatting in a language you don't understand, this big booming language with heavy syllables and things like that. But they sort of stop and look at you as you come in, and then Shu just sort of like gives them a nod, and a group of them like part next to the fire. And as you sort of approach, they pass you these large bowls that are like salad bowl sized, filled with a stew of something that actually smells quite good. And Shu just basically motions to some like stone carved benches that are here around the fires and says, "Go on, have a seat. I'm gonna go get a bowl of stew and I'll come join you."
There's no, like, human meat in here, is there?
Ha! No, these ogres wish. We don't get visitors very often, like I mentioned. This is pretty much all vegetables. There's a little bit of, well, there are some hunters further in. They do hunt certain types of game, but it's rarer than vegetables. Mostly we eat vegetables. Just sit down.
That is like reluctantly undoes the sword and as it goes closer to the firelight and puts it away.
And you're basically sat next to that Etten creature, and it sort of looks down at you with its big, hairy, tusked head, which has, like, its face is the only place where there's not hair, and it's got, like, a big blue handprint on its face. Like it's tried to warp paint its face or something like that. And it just looks, one of the heads looks down at you and says, in common, just very, very rough common, what does it say? It says, "I'm Cobble." And then the other head sort of leans around and says, "And I'm Loaf." And then it just goes back to, they look like they were bickering with each other before you sat down next to it, and they go straight back to that.
Okay.
And then Shuten eventually comes and sits down next to you around the fire, and notices that none of you have started eating yet. Says, "Come on, dig in."
Yeah, that is starts sipping in stew.
Yeah, it's surprisingly good. It's got like a nice broth to it.
Who else is around the fire where we're sitting down?
None of the trolls are around the fires. They seem to keep like a distance, except for Shu. He doesn't seem to be too afraid or doesn't seem to mind. And in fact, he kind of pokes at the fire lazily. So mostly it's like the ogres and that two-headed creature that I was talking about.
Okay.
I'll go sit down next to the Etten then.
Okay, sort of on the other side across from Thaddeus, closer to Loaf.
Hi, Loaf.
It looks down at you and says, "I'm Loaf."
Hi. Hello.
And then it says something in Giant, and then the other head like shouts something at it, like you can't tell what they're talking about, but they like go right back to bickering with each other. And like one of the hands, like Loaf's hand, goes up and grabs Cobble's throat, and Cobble's hand goes up and grabs Loaf's throat, and they seem to be trying to like strangle each other at whatever interaction this
I'm
happens.
just fascinated. I'm just watching glow.
Is the 8-armed one like clapping with feet and hands or something?
No, it's hanging back away from the fire.
Oh, okay.
Just kind of nursing a bowl of stew. Into actually several bowls of stew into its various heads.
Oh, wow.
But Shuten, once he sees you sort of like getting the lay of the land and calming down a little bit, says, "So, like I said, I think we can help each other out.
What do you think?
Well, you see, before you guys arrived, believe it or not, we're the small folk around here." And he sort of points to himself as he towers above the group of you. It says, sometime thousands of years ago or something like that, so the legends say, our forefathers, our great forefathers and mothers came to this vessel and made it their home. And the bigger ones, they dwell further in. They've carved out little domains for themselves. But they don't tend to count us as they feed us. They give us their scraps, but they don't count us as true giants. And you can see he gets a little bit of like a fire in his eyes and says, and that's just not right. We're as much giant as the rest of them.
It's true. You're very tall.
Exactly. I mean, shorter than most of them. Some of the stinky ones were a little bit shorter than, but or taller than even. It just doesn't make sense that we can't be included in their ordering, you know?
Yeah. Totally.
And so,
It's here.
you see, maybe about, I want to say a few months ago, the cave-dwelling ones, they received a prophecy. They're real spiritual, right? Real spiritual types. Their leader, a guy by the name of Mimir, received a prophecy, or more of an omen, that the one who had been previously at the very top of the ordning, storm giant named Voltrus, that he died. He was no more. And he was the last one. You see, he was the last one to participate in the League of Jotun, which is what they call this little nation carved out for themselves. So there's no more storm giants associated with the League of Jotun. And so Mimir, you see, divined that it's time, for the first time in thousands of years, to renegotiate the ordning. And I guess I should explain the ordning. You see, there's several different types of superior giants. And they have a set order of power, hierarchy. The ones at the top get to tell the ones at the bottom what to do, essentially. And storm giants have been at the top since the beginning of time. But there's no more of them, supposedly. At least none that participate in this little league of ours. And so they need to negotiate a new top. And so the reordering games begin. So now's our chance, you see? And his eyes light up again. Now's the chance for the lesser giants to become regular giants.
So you don't necessarily want to be in the top, but you want to be
Included.
included.
We just don't want to eat the scraps anymore.
A seat at the table.
I can understand that.
Exactly. A chance to be involved in decisions.
And where do we come in on this?
Well, you see, the way the reordering games work is that each group of the giants picks a game. And they all pick, of course, one that they're the best at.
Earthball. Classic.
Since you're not far off. The stone giants always pick rock throwing.
Okay.
Fire giants always pick single combat. Frost giants always pick a hunt or wrestling. The cloud giants are always gambling since they're the smartest. And that leaves us at a disadvantage because we can't beat them at any of those. But the rules are you have to beat 3 of the other giants to win. Well, to win, I say, to bring the reordering to a close. Once the reordering comes to a close, then whoever wins can shuffle any group of giants up or down 1. So, if we were to win this reordering, since they'd let us participate knowing that we can't win, then we'd have a chance to move into the ordering.
But would we, as small folk, even to you, count as members of your clan?
Well, that's the thing. To be able to participate, you just have to be considered. And he like puts up big air quotes and he goes, mocked, and he rolls his eyes, giant-like or whatever. That just means you have to be accepted by one of the groups as giants. There's nothing to say you gotta be this tall to ride or anything like that. So what I'm thinking
That's
is,
a good thing for me.
I saw the group of you back there. You got some abilities, some that we don't have here. And he looks at the group and says, "You got magic." Not many of the giants. Not many of them have magic. Some of the cloud giants do, but the rest are. Some of them are downright scared of it, even, which gives you an advantage that we don't have. So I'm thinking, we make you our team. We give you the info you need.
This sounds really dangerous.
Well, what's in it for us, though?
Exactly.
Yeah, right. I was getting to that. And if you manage to renegotiate us a spot in the Ordinary, then we'll have the ability to sit at the table, and we will owe you a favor. So we
you can get this island to move wherever we want it to go.
Right, like I said, some of the ones that dwell deeper down, the stone giants, the spiritual types, they know how to move this thing. If we recognize you as giant, you participate in the games on our behalf, and get us a spot at the table, we can get you an audience with the stone giants. Well, more than an audience. We can convince them to take you into wherever it is that they go to communicate with the vessel.
Otherwise, we're stuck in this thing and we don't get to.
I would have that to figure it out though,
Or we just
how to do it.
forget the games and do it on our own terms.
That's what I was
with
thinking.
the other.
He sort of like shrugs
We
his
just
shoulders and
bypass
says,
everything and just storm our way in.
"Look, I won't stop. I can't stop you from doing that. Like, look what I'm working with. I don't exactly have the talent to take you on." And as like you look around, the Etten is like picking its nose and eating it like it's a massive booger. And yeah, one of the trolls is just kind of like absentmindedly scratching its butt. So like, it's very clear that these guys don't have what it takes to take you on. He goes on and says, "So,
Dodgeball, everything.
if you guys want to risk it on your own and try and find your way down into the Stone Giant's tunnels, make your way through that labyrinth, probably fighting them along the way. They say they're gentle giants, but they aren't if you go into their territory, especially their sacred sites. If you want to do that, that's up to you. But if you want to be smart about this, you participate in the games."
What are the games?
Well, that's the thing. We can initiate a challenge whenever we want. These things can go on for hundreds of years. In fact, the last one did. Because every giant wants to win. But that means they have to train up a team that can beat the other giants at every single game. And so they'll spend hundreds of years before they initiate their challenge. Because once you fail a challenge, that's it. You're out.
But you might as well do it now because you don't really have any better hook than us.
Exactly. We're not gonna be able to train up. We're at our potential and it's not enough.
I like our chances better in the games than assaulting a giant city.
Yeah, we're not really good at sneaking or talking our way out of stuff.
Excuse you, silent place.
You don't have a lot of experience sneaking without making noise, though.
I
I
understand.
have a feeling you might still knock things over.
I was just kidding. I think the games are our best chance as well.
Well, look,
Scenario.
Look, it's up to you. And I'll give you some time to think about it. Like, I'm gonna go sit over there at the other fire, and just leave you guys alone to think about it. Don't worry about Cobble Loaf here. He won't bother you. He's pretty dumb.
I look up at Loaf, I'm like, what do you think about that, Loaf?
He kind of like looks down to you like the rest of that booger coming out of his nose.
I grab it with Mage Hand and I throw it.
And Loaf like tries to get up, but Cobble like tries to stay sitting, and the two of them tumble over backwards. Like Loaf was going to chase after it, like a dog after a ball, but Cobble was like not ready for it and just falls over backwards. And then the two of them begin wrestling on the ground.
I think I see your point.
Shoot, how did you get to be the leader? How did you get to be so smart?
Same reason the Cloud Giants stand at the top. Well, without the Storm Giants, anyways. They got the most brains. Just makes sense.
Speaking of leaders, I'll go with whatever you decide. Just
Okay.
offering my counsel.
Yeah. Do you guys agree?
That's what you want to do.
We're in it for you.
All right. So then we'll. She doesn't. I guess maybe it doesn't report, but I think I'll be like, we're in. But I think maybe can you give us a little more details about the specifics so we can strategize a little bit, maybe?
All right. Well, what do you want to know?
So single combat sounds pretty straightforward. Are there any like restrictions that come to mind that aren't straightforward? Is it anything goes for most of these things, or is it like
You just gotta. You can't do anything ungiant-like. And I know that's not very descriptive, but that's what I'm here for. I'll be your coach. If you decide to do something that's ungiant-like, I'll be sure to warn you.
So what is giant-like? What's considered giant-like?
It's complicated because there's so many different types of giants and they all have their own values. They're all lumped into one. So for example, you see the hill giants, the big smelly ones I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to engage in raiding behaviors. Like they're so dumb. They think they have to go fight for their food even though you're throwing their food in front of them, right? And so they will go and try and raid settlements to get their food even though they're perfectly full. So raiding is considered giant-like. Even though a storm giant might see that as barbaric, it's not ungiant-like.
I don't see.
It's confusing, exactly. And so, like I said, most giants don't like magic and some are scared of it. But cloud giants are actually, they have some talent with magic. And so that is giant-like to them.
So if one clan thinks a certain behavior is giant-like, then the rest will agree.
To some extent, though they might find
So
it
as long as
distasteful.
as long as all our actions are similar to one type of giant, then we're covered.
Or
For the
do we
most
need to make sure that our actions are considered giant-like depending on the game that we're playing and who's hosting that game? So if we go
yeah,
play
good point.
if we go play the hill giant game, we have to be giant-like the hill giants would consider giant-like?
Not necessarily, but if you want to gain points with any specific group of giants, then yeah.
Do all the giants gather to watch the games?
Sometimes, like I said, challenges are pretty rare, and these things can go on for hundreds of years. So the leaders might come to see their competition.
So single combat sounds straightforward enough insofar as how to win, but who judges other types of games?
But most of the time, they don't need a judge. So, for example, single combat, you pretty much play till one is unable to fight anymore.
But raiding, for instance, hunting.
Oh, the hill giants that's not their game. They play a thing they like to call stuff. And they put as many sheep in their mouth as they can without swallowing.
Okay, well, we're not going to win that.
I mean, I could transform someone into a giant ape and then...
Yeah, Shuten does that sort of like awful
Nice
grating
job.
laugh, and it's like, ha! No, you wouldn't, not at your size. There's no chance. But there's a couple ways you might stand a chance. You might be able to convince them to let you play with smaller stuff instead of the sheep. Probably you'd have to convince a smarter giant, like one of the cloud giants or something that's watching. The hill giants are going to be too stupid to care what you're doing, really. They just want to stuff their mouths.
Well, you don't have to play that game. You only have to pick 3.
So
That's true.
okay,
The
yeah.
other option is, I happen to know, and this could be helpful for one or a number of challenges. I happen to know that the leader of the Cloud Giants lives in the Citadel, in the very center of this, of their territory. A male giant goes by the name of Hevring. I happen to know that he's an accomplished alchemist, brewer of potions, and he, for whatever reason, I don't think after the life he's lived, however many years he's lived, that there is any reason to it, decided to brew potions of all sorts of kinds, but one that he talks about sometimes, just to like, for some reason, brag about how useless it is a potion that can make smaller things bigger, giant-sized. So maybe you sneak into his castle and you steal a bottle of that potion, or maybe you win it from him in their gambling game.
So there's a gambling game.
Yep.
There's single combat.
Probably.
There's stuff.
There's
And
hunting.
There's hunting.
Or wrestling. They go back and forth.
Okay. Were there any others?
Rock throwing, you said?
Rock throwing,
Oh, rock
wrestling.
Stone giants are usually rock throwing.
I can throw rocks.
And then Shuten pipes up again and says, well, that's the other thing. That's the one other rule. One giant per event. So you gotta have a team. No one giant can participate in 2 events.
I see.
You can't just have one hero amongst your group. You all have to be worthy.
Hmm.
But you only have to win 3. So don't need to challenge them all.
Well,
I'm very small.
who wants to do what? Or what? Let's see. I mean, we could also poke around the towns or cities and see if there's other helpful things. If we want to talk about which game we want to participate in right now.
Yeah,
too.
let's go on that recon mission first.
Yeah, do that.
Alright, well, I can take you to where they all dwell. The bigger ones. If you
Sure.
want.
That's good. How long does it take to travel the vessel?
Oh, if you wanted to travel from one end to the other, I have no idea. It'd take a while.
I see. But then to get to their homesteads, how long does that take?
Oh, I mean, that wouldn't take that long. A couple hours.
Oh, okay. So alright. Sure. You guys ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can go.
Okay.
What's Kovalov doing?
What's Kovalov doing? They've finished fighting and seem to have made up for now. Like they're giving each other the cold single shoulder. And since they've spilled their soup bowl, gone back for another bowl, and they're trying to ladle soup into it.
Use my chant to tug on Cobble's ear that's closer to Leaf.
Yeah, and you hear sorry, you tug on Cobble's ear?
Yeah,
Okay.
the one that's on Leaf's
Loaf's
side.
Loaf's
Loaf's
side.
side, sorry.
Yeah, you hear Loaf like let out a howl of pain, and then turn to Cobble, and then basically just like with a big swing, just pop him right in the face, and then the two of them begin bickering again, dropping the soup bowl for the 3rd time.
Let's go, Harmony.
It'll never
Like,
get old.
grabs Harmony by like the scruff of the neck. Let's go.
So yeah, Shuten sort of says a few words to one of the ogres, and presumably Giant, and the ogre kind of gives a nod, and then begins to lead the group of you into the next tunnel that seems to lead forward. And this tunnel continues in darkness for maybe an hour of walking or so, so if you have anything you want to talk about.
Hey, shoot.
Yeah?
Is this whole place underground? Or does it open up and there's like daylight?
Well, you're just gonna have to see for yourself. I guess from wherever you come from, it'll probably come as a bit of a surprise.
Well, I know we're underwater right now.
Right, but you'll see. And he doesn't say a word on it after that.
So, who wants to do what for which game?
I want to ask Shuken which. So I know that the hill giants do stuff, and the stone giants do rock climbing. But who runs the other ones?
Cloud does gambling, Fire does combat, and then Storm isn't here anymore. They did hunting though, right? Or was it
That
Cloud?
was Frost Giants.
Frost Giants do
Either hunting
Okay.
or wrestling,
Yeah.
usually.
What do you think?
Gambling.
I thought you'd say that.
Yeah, kind of figured.
Probably have to see what we can do to find you a set of dice that you can actually roll.
You figure hunting for you?
Yeah, can you tell us more about the hunting portion of it?
Well, it usually involves going into the forests around. Well, I guess that gives a little bit of a way of what you're going to see, but and hunting after a specific quarry with your bare hands. No weapons allowed.
No weapons. Okay.
The frost giants tend to prefer polar bears. Usually, the one who comes back with the most pelts wins.
Interesting. No weapons. Kind of reliant on these things called weapons, I think. But I would be okay tracking. That's a weird one. Rock throwing. Let's see.
I can throw really big rocks.
Use your telekinesis.
But can you get hit by really big rocks? That's the
No.
question.
No,
Oh, what's that about?
I could probably catch them though. In the air.
You better hope that you could catch them.
Well, that'll be important because the stone giants are pretty good at catching rocks too.
I'm kind of a small
like-
target though.
Is it like dodgeball?
I don't know what this game is that you're talking about, but it sounds like it.
Are you trying to like throw rocks at the other person?
Yeah, usually the challenger throws a rock as far as they can, and then the challengee goes and stands by that rock and throws it back. So, if the challenger can throw it further than the challengee, then they're safe. But if not, they get plowed over by a rock.
Still confident?
I don't understand.
So I think that is like stops and starts drawing in the dust. Here's you.
Mm-hmm.
You throw the rock here.
Mm-hmm.
Then your opponent goes to stand at this rock while you stand exactly where you threw it.
Mm-hmm.
And if the other giant, I guess this is the only giant because you're the giant, can throw that rock at you, then you'll get hit. But if it's not strong enough to throw that rock and it
I
falls
see.
short,
I see.
then I suppose you wouldn't.
I see.
And you don't get rolled over by a rock.
Exactly.
Then if you do get hit and you somehow survive, and you're not unconscious, then it just becomes a, well, I mean, I think you can imagine what it becomes.
So that's a question. Do you think you can throw a rock further than a giant?
I don't think so.
All right.
I mean, my magic's strong, but I don't know how far I can throw a rock. I've never tried it before.
What if you use telekinesis?
That's what I'm
That's what
saying.
you would do. Yeah.
I'd be using telekinesis to throw
Or
a big rock.
dimension door? Well, that doesn't work that way.
How big are the rocks?
Shu kind of like shrugs
I don't
as
have
he's
the
walking
catapult,
forward and
so-
says, sort of depends how big the giant can pick up.
Oh, they select the rock.
What if
But
the,
there's no like standard size rock.
What? But if
Where
the
do you
other
come
giant
from?
goes first, if the other giant throws first, and then I get to be the second person throwing, then I don't have to worry about getting hit by the
You're
rock.
Well, you gotta get challenged then. Challenger
Taunt.
throws first. That's always
You
the
know a
rule.
spell called Taunt?
I know a spell called Suggestion. I could get somebody to challenge me.
You'd have to.
Is
gotta
that,
use
is
magic.
that giant-like?
And pick the smallest one.
Although that would be outside of the game.
Using magic for trickery isn't necessarily not giant-like. Like I said, a lot of giants do it sometimes. But you'd have to get the consensus of the group of giants to make a challenge, an official challenge. So you'd probably have to bring their leader under your sway.
I could do that.
Don't you have a thing now?
I have a spell where I can completely control thoughts.
Oh, so you can challenge it during the week.
I could do that too. I could dominate them while they're throwing.
All I'll say about that is just don't get seen doing it.
Oh, that's not a problem for me.
Hmm.
I have subtle spells.
Sounds like you might.
Or
Sounds like you might be able to get away with that.
you could turn Hunter invisible and he just blocks.
That sounds like an awful idea.
No.
But this is why I picked you guys. I mean, not that I had many options, but you see what I mean. You got options, which we just didn't have. I can feel it.
Yeah,
You're gonna make
I
it
can
work.
do the rock throw. Wait, but he needs to be within 60 feet of me for me to cast the spell on him. But it lasts an hour, so I could cast it before the challenge starts.
And just let him do what he wants until then?
Yeah.
Maybe invite him for a drink first.
Maybe
Good luck.
Well, because I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that there's going to be a moment where we're standing together before he
As
walks
in, maybe you
up.
can like pretend to.
Sure,
Maybe
you
they
do.
can talk to him.
I could like.
You throw first, and then you cast it, and then he,
Misses. Badly.
Look, it sounds like you got options.
This is amazing.
Okay.
So
But I only have one
Wouldn't it be
shot.
funny
If he successfully, if he saves against it, that's
well,
my one
this,
shot.
this is what I'm asking. How confident are you?
I'm pretty confident.
Wouldn't it be funny if you had to
That's
throw
a rock
further
throw
in
for
that way?
So here's the other
I'm
thing.
gonna throw some rocks.
Here's the other thing. If you're not confident about getting rocks thrown at you, then this is really your only option. Because if you went down to the stone giant tunnels without competing in this game and getting us established in the Ordning first, that's what would be happening to all of you, is rocks.
So many rocks.
Big rocks.
I can do it.
All right.
And let me just reiterate, if you lose one game, you're not out of the challenge. But if you get, 3 strikes before you get 3 wins, right? Then you're out.
Gambling, rock throwing.
Probably hunting, but
Hunting.
But so if we have to have a different hero, does that mean we only get 4 shots? Or I guess 5 if Comic Book participates?
Luckily for you,
There's only 5 different
Cloud, Fire, Frost, Hill, Stone. I knew there was one.
I was
5
like looking at
decks.
the list you wrote, like there's 5.
The worst case scenario, you got 1 for each deck.
So we could fail too.
What was that one? Cloud, fire, stone, frost.
My list I've got.
Hill.
I have to.
Well, I'm interested in fire because I think it's the only one I could reasonably.
That sounds
Yeah.
like you. Single
Win it.
combat.
Yeah, they wouldn't like you. I saw that sword of yours. It didn't look warm.
No, it's not.
yeah, I think that'd be your best bet.
So gambling,
That's another one, though, where
hunting.
being a bit of a bigger size might, come in handy.
We were just talking about how much geology rocks.
Oh god. I'm
We
ignoring
were. That was
that. I'm ignoring that.
a.
I don't have
So-
that orange spell. So we'd have to steal that potion.
I'll ask him
But
like
Mark could steal that.
for the hunting.
Who says I need a potion?
You really just have to go barehanded. There's no. You can't bring any tools with you.
Not if you want to be considered.
Can you bring
Mott.
a hunting pet?
He sort of casts his eyes over to Byakko. I mean, strictly speaking, it's supposed to be by your own strength. But look, frost giants keep pets and use them for hunting themselves. So I guess I don't know why not.
So would a frost giant bring their pet with them?
No, absolutely not.
I
Probably wouldn't.
mean, you're pretty strong.
Yeah.
Frost giants are also arrogant and brutish, though. So
I think you could take a photo there.
Well, I mean, it's not about just one. It's about a number of them, right?
It's either that or stuff.
I'll do hunting. I just need to I just need to figure out how to do it because I don't have any weapons.
I mean, your unarmed strike would do 1 plus your strength modifier, which is
Yeah.
6.
Just 6.
So your unarmed strike does 7 damage, and you can do 3 of them
Yeah.
per turn. So you still do
21
decent damage.
Yeah.
Against a polar bear.
Hunting polar bears. We'll
They're
give it a
not
shot.
like giant polar bears, they're just polar bears.
Oh, we'll see.
Also, you have a few tricks up your sleeve, even unarmed. I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
don't
have
you
all your
have
maneuvers.
something already installed?
I don't think I can use that though. Doesn't that count as a weapon?
Can't
What's
you-
installed in my body?
Are you asking Shu?
It's part of your body. It's part of your body.
Yeah.
Part of your body. It's just
Or
your
you
I
hand.
mean, I guess if no one sees you do it.
or you
But
could, like,
if you
fly
bring
up
back
real high
pelts
and
with
then
stab wounds, they aren't going to be happy about it.
Yeah, I gotta be.
Fly up real high and then jump on it.
Well, I mean, yeah.
How are you supposed to skin a polar bear with no knife?
But
You
you
can
have to
skin it
skin
with a knife, but you can't use the knife to kill it. I mean, there's a difference. Like, they can tell from the pelt if it's been torn in multiple places or if it's been skinned properly,
So when you kill it, make sure you slice it where you're gonna put the skin off.
That'd be tricky.
I probably will just stick with what.
Equip.
Yeah, I'm not gonna worry about it. We'll just go. We'll do our best.
You can go last. That way maybe the 3 of us will succeed and you won't have to do it.
I'd still like to try this. So I'm happy going. I'm happy going first as well.
Have any of you conveyed what is up to Kamiko?
I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
who can?
so sure. Yeah, I think through the conversation I would be translating.
Just little bits and pieces?
Well, as much as I can while still maintaining a conversation. And then I think when we're sort of at this point, then I would give her the most information.
Okay. Yeah,
How does she feel about competing at stuff?
That'll be the last resort.
her eyes go pretty wide and she says to Hunter, I don't think I would be very good at this Stuff.
Which one would you prefer to do if you had a choice?
She thinks about it. I'm not a bad hunter, and I'm good in a single combat bout. I don't know how I'd do it. Gambling or rock throwing? What am I missing? Stuff. Is that
Wrestling.
Yeah.
They're wrestling.
Well,
If
yeah.
it comes to wrestling, perhaps maybe I could disable key points in their bodies.
I think she'd be a better. If it's wrestling, I think she'd be a better wrestler than hunter. If it's hunting, I think hunting's gonna be what's in his name.
Yeah.
Hey, Shu,
Yeah.
what's stuff?
I mean, it's like I said, you just put as many sheep and
Oh,
cows
it's
in
the
your
sheep
mouth
thing.
as you can until you
That would be pretty
have
funny.
to chew.
That would be pretty funny to watch comic would do that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you might be able to convince one of the smarter giants to let you choose smaller food for that.
Or I could polymorph her into a T-Rex. Then she could fit a lot of sheep in her mouth.
She like shrugs. Yeah, that could work. Like I said,
Interesting
hill
thought.
giant's pretty stupid. I don't think they're gonna care. Like as far as stupid goes, like lower than cobble loaf. Seriously.
How many sheep do they usually fit in their mouth?
I've seen as many as like 6 or 7.
Well, that's a lot. I don't know if 6 or 7 will fit in a T-Rex's mouth.
I think they,
Maybe like 4 or 5.
what's a T-Rex?
I do a minor illusion. They look like this, except really big.
Without, it's impossible to say at this size.
A sheep would be this size. I put a sheep in its mouth of the illusion.
It's like the whole like banana for size context thing, but it's a sheep.
That's so funny.
Oh, hold on! And I just put a sheep in its mouth, and a sheep standing next to it.
Sheep.
Lots of sheep,
Sheep for scale.
running around it.
Well, that's a desperation.
Picturing Jurassic Park.
Right.
Not the way, like,
I guess you couldn't have heard.
Sure is funny to think
But if
about.
it comes to it, I'll become this thing and eat the sheep.
This is why I like her.
Don't make her do this.
Well, she can go last.
To
Okay.
Hunter, she says, "We need to get to the Elderhaven Reaches, no matter what it takes.
I understand.
I'll do it if I have to."
I might be able to change her into something with a bigger mouth.
We'll think about it. Okay. So, is he taking us just to every single town on the way, or
Well, he said that like if you went to do something that was ungiant-like, he'd tell you. So presumably he's going with you.
Yeah.
And also you know that like the giants would not be welcoming of you if they
right?
saw you
Yeah.
without the knowledge that you've been commissioned into giantdom by this troll.
So once we get about this point in the conversation, I'll ask. So where's our first stop? Where's the nearest?
I mean, that's up to you where you want to go first. The nearest is probably the stone giants
Yeah, I guess
or the
we
hill
have,
giants. They're about
we have
equidistant.
2 probably main things we gotta do. One of the games first, or we could go to that city that he's talking about if we needed anything or wanted like get a giant potion or whatever for something.
I still don't understand why you think I need one.
I'm not saying you need one. I'm just saying if we want one for anything, we could. But if not, we can just go to the rock throwing first.
He's just saying it would be at your advantage. It would only.
It sure couldn't hurt to have one. I mean, these fire giant warriors, like the military arts are what they train for,
I
day
mean-
in and day out. I mean, how do they live? How long do they live? Like 800 years? They're really good.
They're very big.
Mhm.
And, I mean, sure, maybe you could take one, and it would be a really tough fight, but you could do it. But think if you were the same size. It would be easy.
Well, wait, because Voltrus, he was a huge creature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can expect that these giants are going to be similar size.
Yeah.
Remember when we fought the giant in Orin's?
I think that is Murtis himself. It's so tough.
Yeah, well, you never actually fought Voltrus himself. You
No.
fought like
That's true.
contained Warforged version of Voltrus.
But we saw Voltrus.
You saw
We
Voltrus
didn't even
himself.
fight the Warforged really though, because
Yeah.
because Mandus took
He fought him.
Fought
and
him
then
first, and
King
then
crashed through, and then I was climbing and stabbing at him.
yeah,
and
but he was like
tripped
already
him.
like weakened by
But like
the end of
when you
his
saw
ball bearings.
when you saw the giant version of Vulturus fighting the Eyes of the World, like it was hurling lightning bolts that like destroyed the large warforged creatures in one hit and things like that. So
Pretty intimidating.
pretty intimidating. Like, to give you a reminder, that giant can throw 2 lightning bolts per turn, which hit without fail. There's no attack roll, and they do 40 plus damage.
But this was also the stone giant that's at the top of the food chain.
Right.
Yes.
Fire giants
I would
are
if I could
definitely
fire
not.
giant.
I don't
But-
know where they stand. in
They're
the
also
Cloud, fire, frost. No, wait.
storm.
Cloud, fire, frost, stone, hill, I think. The stone ones always throw me off because they're some of the smartest, but they're lower than you'd think.
Well, I mean, their competition is just throwing rocks. How smart can they be?
Wait till you see how they do it. Well, anyways, we're just about there. And you can begin to see light at the end of the tunnel. From not like flickering campfire light, but like a steady source of light. And as Shu leads you squinting into that light, the cavern opens up into a vast area that is several miles wide in every direction. And from where you stand at sort of like the top of a rise, you can look out, sort of like that scene from Breath of the Wild, you know, where you're surveying over Hyrule. You can see the varying domains where these giants must live. You can see a cave entrance that seems to like slope downward, and it's a huge cave entrance. Like whatever enters this cave must be several, like maybe 2 stories tall or something like that. That slopes downward into the ground where the stone giants must live. You can see the sort of like ramshackle hovels of like basically formed of fallen trees onto each other until they formed of like loose shelter where these hill giants must dwell. And then in the distance, you can see on one side of this like clearing of lush grass, actually. There's actually an active volcano on one side, and then there is a snowy forest covered or surrounding a smaller than the volcano, but still large snowy hillside of sorts. And you can sort of see wooden like longhouses built into the hillside there. And then in the middle of this vast field, you can see fortresses, like massive fortresses. From here, they will almost look smallish or normal size, but considering the distance, they must be huge, built throughout the center of the valley, and then standing in the center of that, where presumably the leader must live, in the grandest of castles, is a 4-spired tower or castle that towers above the rest. And then as you sort of drift your eyes around the cave room, or the room, this massive cave that you find yourselves in, you look up at the ceiling, and there seems to be there's a light source embedded in the ceiling that seems to be giving basically the equivalent of sunlight. But as your eyes sort of focus and you look at it, you realize that it's actually a crystal that is emitting this light that filters down onto this microcosm of the world on the surface. And I think that is where we'll end tonight's episode.
Okay.
Wow.
Whew. All right, well, thank you to anyone who tuned in to watch. Thank you guys for playing. I'm excited to get into these giant games next
Oh, boy.
week. I expect shenanigans.
Oh, so many shenanigans.
This is a section that I almost cut just because I wanted to get to the reaches faster, but then I was like, this group needs some more shenanigans before they get into serious stuff. So,
I appreciate it.
hence stuff.
Really giant shenanigans.
So thank you for tuning in to watch. We'll be back Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific time for more of this. Should be a fun episode. Hope to see you then. Thanks for watching. Good night. Bye.